Hi, I'm Daniel Early. I'm one of Dave Early's sons, and it's a privilege to get to talk with you today. I'm a prison chaplain in Florida, in Alabama, and I would like to talk to you about the process of faith. And this comes from a story of Jesus and a man named Jairus from the book of Mark, chapter 5. And I want to tell you the story and point out a few points here that have to do with the faith Jesus develops and we see that Jairus have in this little episode. So in the book of Mark, chapter 5, Jesus gets out of a boat and tons of people come to start crowd around him. And one man pushes his way through the crowd named Jairus. And Jairus was a well-to-do leader. He was a synagogue leader. He was well respected in the community. He had a good reputation. He had enough money. But none of those things could prevent him from the suffering he was currently experiencing. See, Jairus fought his way to Jesus because his daughter was sick and at the point of death. But Jairus has faith that Jesus can come and make her well. Faith connects with Jesus. God says that if we believe he exists, and he will reward us for diligently seeking him. So it says Jairus came and fell at the feet of Jesus and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come, lay your hands on her." And it says, Jesus went with him. When we connect to Jesus by faith, he will go with us into the situations that we're struggling with, and he will come and help, and his presence will be with us. That's one thing that faith does. It prays, and it connects with Jesus. The next thing we see in the story is Jesus and Jairus, they start going through town, and there's more people crowded around Jesus, a throng of people pressing at him. And a little lady who's has major problems with bleeding, she comes up to Jesus and she touches him, and Jesus heals her completely, instantaneously on the spot, and he says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." So Jairus sees an amazing miracle happen right in front of him. So he's got to be thinking, my daughter's at the point of death. I have Jesus with me. We're going to go. He's going to bring her back up to life. She's going to be all right. We're going to make it through this problem. But that's not what happens next in the story. Because we see here in Mark chapter 5, verse 35, as soon as Jesus heals the woman with bleeding, there were some people from Jairus' house that come up and say to Jairus, "Your daughter is dead." Your daughter is dead. Jairus gets a bad, horrible report right after seeing an amazing miracle happen. His heart could have sunk. He could have given up. He could have got angry, discouraged. He could have gone away. A lot of times when we get bad reports, maybe you've got a bad report and you've wanted to give up on God. The doctor's report was a death sentence. The legal report ended something that was very significant. A call from a child broke your heart. But guess what happens in this story? It says in verse 36, overhearing what they said, Jesus said, "Don't fear, only believe." See, when you get a bad report, you're not the only one who hears that news. Jesus is also right there with you, overhearing bad news that comes to you. He's right there with you when situations turn south, and he has a word for you. He says, "Don't fear, only believe." You might not know why God's letting something happen that is literally happening to you, but he's with you, and he's saying, "Don't be afraid," and commanding you to believe. See, in the process of faith, we find Jesus, and then sometimes there's a trial, and he says, "Keep sticking with me. I'm still with you. Keep believing." So what happens next in the story? Jesus and Jairus, they go into Jairus' house to find that mourners had been called already. See, in that culture, at a funeral, there was loud weeping and wailing, shrieking. Mourning was a public display. If you were going to empathize with someone that was hurting, you physically showed it by ripping your clothes and crying loudly and sad music being played. And this is faith, not faith. This is unfaith. This is unbelief. Jesus steps into a funeral parlor, so to speak, and he rejects unbelief. What he says is, "Why are you making commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." Jesus sees things from a heavenly perspective, an eternal perspective, and a perspective in which miracles can happen all the time. He says, I'm the resurrection and the life. And he's ready to do a great miracle, but the people laugh at him and they mock him and they don't believe. So what he does in verse 40, he puts all the people who don't believe he's about to show up and do something great, he puts them outside and he takes those who do believe, the father, Jairus, and the mother, and they go into the room with the little child, and he's going to do something impossible in response to the faith that Jairus has shown as he sticks with Jesus when he could have turned away multiple times. In verse 41, it says this, taking her by the hand, he said to the little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl got up and began walking, and they were overcome with amazement. I don't know what you're going through right now. I don't know what's good or what's bad. I don't know how you're suffering, but I do know Jesus is with you absolutely. And if he doesn't resurrect your situation here on earth, when you stand before him in heaven, if he welcomes you into heaven by faith alone in him and he has saved you, you're going to see amazing restoration happen at all times. If you're having trouble sticking with him through suffering, remember that he suffered more for you on the cross than you'll ever experience in your whole life. And the reason he did that was to end suffering. May he end the dead things in your life and give life to them. May he reward you for diligently seeking him. He's able to call things that aren't into existence. And if you don't see what your faith has beholded in him here on earth, you will certainly in heaven. Stick with Jesus. Persevere in the faith. He's bringing you through a process that's going to culminate in a crown of life.